Hello kids, welcome back to maths class. I hope you all did your homework. No, I'm just kidding. We will be doing some maths today, but the focus is on scopes and the focus is on scope units. You guys have seen my scope reviews of various optics, good quality products such as the SWFA scopes, the Optizan scopes, and very recently the Aztec scopes, which have their units, the turret units and the reticle units the same. In other words, the turrets will either be minutes of angle and the reticle will be minutes of angle as well, or the turret will be mils and the reticle will be mils. But my point is, they use the same units, and that's what I really like about those products. But there are a few scopes, such as this Hawk Frontier over here, which have everything going right for them, except this one little fact that the reticle and the turrets are on different units. It's never made any sense to me. It's one of the things that I don't like about this Hawk Frontier scope, but if that had to be eradicated, then it would be an excellent choice for an optic. I'm going to teach you guys how to actually fix this. I know it may sound really crazy. A lot of you saying, how the heck do you change your reticle from one unit to another? I'm going to show you today, and it's something that I kind of stumbled upon just by accident actually. I was thinking to myself, you know, how would you change the units of the reticle? And I thought, well, by adjusting the magnification of the scope, you can change the scale of your actual sight picture of your background. So while you can't actually change the scale of the reticle itself, you can change the background's relation to the reticle. And I thought, well, 1 mil is approximately 3.44 or something like that minutes of angle. That's really close to 4. So what if there was some way to actually change the background or change the magnification that the scope is calibrated at, so that we can actually get the reticle to align perfectly with 4 minutes of angle per hash marking. And after doing a bit of maths, I realized that it was possible to do this. So before we jump into that, we do need to do a bit of background information on those two different units, minutes of angle and mil, and speak about, you know, how are they different and how do they relate to each other. So I'm going to put this rifle aside just for a moment. We're going to take out the good old whiteboard. We're going to have a quick lesson. Okay, so you should be able to see that over here. If not, I will have to crop in a little bit or get some close-ups. But at the top here, we have angular units of measurement. So what makes mils and MOA different to something like inches and centimeters is that an inch or a centimeter is exactly the same no matter where you measure from. It's an exact distance. But an angular unit of measurement, the span, the distance of 1 minute of angle or 1 mil will change depending on how far away you are from the origin. So if you see over here, for example, minutes of angle starts over here, and this is to show how 1 minute of angle will be different at different distances. So minute of angles just happen to work really well with yards, because at 100 yards, 1 minute of angle is approximately 1 inch. I'll say approximately, it's like 1.047 or something like that. It's close to 1.05, so it's not exactly 1 inch, and that's actually one of the reasons I don't like using minutes of angle that much. I prefer to use mils. Mils is more exact, but you can say 1 inch. So 1 minute of angle spans exactly, well, approximately 1 inch at 100 yards, and because it's an angular unit of measurement, if you go back to 50 yards, it'll span half an inch, because it's half the distance. Or if you go 200 yards, it'll span 2 inches, 500 yards, 5 inches, etc., etc. So if you use the imperial system, in other words, like inches and yards, then minutes of angle is going to probably be the units that you want to use, especially if your rangefinder is set up in yards, or if you have measuring equipment like rulers or calipers that measure in inches, you're going to want to use this. So most of you American guys. And then mils or milliradians, pretty much the same thing, just a different unit, and mils are way more suited to the metric system. So here you go again, angular unit of measurement. 1 mil going out to 100 meters. At 100 meters, 1 mil will span exactly 10 centimeters. At 50 meters, 1 mil will expand exactly 5 centimeters. At 500 meters, 1 mil will span exactly 50 centimeters. 1,000 meters, 1 mil will span 1 meter. So that's how those two work. But there is a relation between the two. You can't easily convert them because it's quite an odd conversion. 1 mil equals 3.44 minutes of angle. So it is quite difficult to switch between the two units, and that's why, you know, one of the reasons I prefer to have a scope with everything in the same units and not mixing them up. It just makes absolutely no sense to me to do that. So what I figured out is that we can adjust the relationship between the sight picture and the reticle simply by changing the magnification, so that each division spans 4 MOA instead of 3.44 MOA. So as it stands with this Hawk Frontier scope, each division, because it's a MIL reticle, each division will span 3.44 MOA, which is really random. We don't want to work like that. So we want to find a way to get that 3.44 MOA to be 4 MOA. So we want to actually stretch out those divisions on the reticle. And we can't do that on the reticle itself. So the only way we can stretch out the divisions is by changing the sight picture in the background. In other words, zooming it in or out. So just a little disclaimer here. You won't be able to do this if you have either a first focal plane scope or if you have a fixed magnification scope. If you've got either of those, it's kind of out of the question. But I find most companies that make first focal plane scopes will have the turrets and the reticles in the same unit anyway. So there's no point in even doing this. But anyway, moving on. So, you know, how do you change how do you figure out what magnification you need to be at to get this right? Again, simple maths. 3.44, which is how many MOA this reticle currently spans at 10x, where it is calibrated, divided by 4. That's what we want it to span, and that gives us 0.86. So since we were at 10 times magnification, or at least that's what the MIL reticle is calibrated at, we have to go 0.86 times that magnification. So 0.86 times whatever your reticle is calibrated at. Obviously 0.86 of 10 is 8.6. So all we have to do to turn this reticle into an MOA reticle is to turn the magnification down to 8.6 times. And at 8.6 times, each marking will span exactly 4 MOA, or 4 inches at 100 yards, or 1 inch at 25 yards. And 2 MOA at 17.2 times. So if you've got a scope that goes past 17.2 times magnification, you can actually just put a second mark in there. So you put one at 8.6 times, and then you put another marking at 17.2, and at 17.2, each of those mils is going to span 2 MOA. It's that simple. Okay, well, hold on there a second. Hate to do this, but I need to just pause there and clarify something quickly. I said that 1 MOA equals 1 inch at 100 yards. That's more or less true. Okay, I've said that so that we can simplify this whole process, but I've realized that more or less is not good enough for some people. It doth butter no parsnips. So I need to be more exact. And I want to say that you need to make sure that your scope is a true MOA scope if you're going to listen to anything I'm about to say from this point forward. Okay? If your scope says 1 click equals 1/4 inch at 100 yards on the turrets, then your scope is not a true MOA scope, it's an SMOA scope, or Shooters MOA. Shooters MOA is basically the manufacturer's attempt at making things more user-friendly for Americans who want to use inches to measure their group size and stuff like that. SMOAs, if you're American, is actually better units to use, but it's not true MOA. So if you've got an SMOA scope, in other words, your turret say 1 click equals 1/4 inch at 100 yards, you're going to do something slightly different, okay? If you've got a true MOA scope, what you're about to see will apply. True MOA, 1 mil equals 3.44 MOA, but 1 mil equals 3.6 SMOA, or Shooters MOA. It's a little bit different. If you've got a true MOA scope, we're going to follow on, and you're going to see that you need to change your magnification to 8.6 times magnification. in order to calibrate your reticle to your turrets. But if you've got an SMOA scope, then you're going to go to 0.9 times magnification, simply because 3.6 divided by 4 equals 0.9. So the calibration process is slightly different. Once you've got that, you'll be sorted, and the confirmation process at 100 yards is going to be slightly different as well. If you've got a true MOA scope, then you need to put a 4.2 inch piece of paper at 100 yards, and once you've done this calibration process, each one of those divisions that used to be a mil will span that 4.2 inch perfectly. If you've got a SMOA scope, then 9 times magnification, mil divisions that used to be mils should span exactly 4 inches at 100 yards. Okay, now that that's clarified, we can move on. This is why the rest of the world hates MOA. Sorry, Americans, it's just a nightmare to use. It doesn't make much sense. Okay, moving on. Now, the difficult part of this is trying to figure out where 8.6 times is, because let's be honest, the markings on these scopes aren't very, very clear sometimes. You know, you've got a 10 and you're trying to put that little arrow, line it up in the middle of the 10 because that's where it's calibrated at. So the only way we can really do this accurately is by setting up an actual real life test where we can actually calibrate it properly. And a simple way to do this is to figure out what for MOA would be at 25 yards. So for MOA at 25 yards is exactly 1 inch. So you will take a piece of paper and you will mark out with 2 lines exactly 1 inch on the piece of paper, and then you will walk back exactly 25 yards, and it's got to be exact. You can't use a laser rangefinder. You've got to get measuring tape and actually get it to the exact point at 25 yards, and then you're going to have to get your scope's turrets at the 25 yard mark exactly. And then you're going to turn your magnification down from 10 times down to 8.6 times, and you should turn it and turn it and turn it until one of those markings, that mil marking, spans the 1 inch perfectly at 25 yards. And at that point, you can look at your scope. It should be at 8.6 times, and you can make a little scratch marking or put a sticker there or something. And then you've got your turrets and your reticle in the same unit, and that'll be perfect. A more accurate way to do this is to measure out exactly 100 yards, and then you would put a 4 inch marker at exactly 100 yards, and again turn your magnification down until that mil marking spans exactly 4 inches, and that will be your reticle calibrated as well. So very simple way to do it. I thought I'd just share that with you guys, and I do realize that this will change a lot of things for a lot of people, because you might have to relearn your holdover points on your scope. You're no longer using mils. If you've got a Hawk scope like Hawk Sidewinder over there, or the old MTC Mambo, MTC Viper scopes, any of those kind of generic airgun scopes have the units mixed up. You will have to relearn your holdover markings, but I do think it's worth it, and it will actually help a lot, because say now you're taking a long shot and you need to hold over, let's say, 6 minutes of angle or 10 minutes of angle for the shot. You just need to get that one unit. You just need to memorize that one unit. You don't have to memorize what is in mils and MOA. And with that one unit, you've got options. You can decide, okay, I'm going to hold over 10 minutes of angle for the shot, or I'm simply going to dial 10 minutes of angle, and that will allow you to focus on putting your crosshairs where you want it, instead of holding in a random point on your scope. So that's it, guys. End of the video. Just a short, quick technical one that's going to help you guys big time. Once again, I did this because I thought it would be a waste to have such a good scope. In other words, the Hawk Frontier, it's a waste to have such a good scope with 2 different units. It just didn't make any sense to me, and I wanted to actually use these turrets because they feel pretty good. They're not large, easy to crank turrets, but they feel pretty good. They're resettable, so I wanted to make use of them. And now that we've figured out a way to do it, that should help us a lot. So if you find this video informative or helpful, you can do me a favor and actually share it with other shooter friends that have scopes like the Hawk Sidewinder or the Hawk Air Max. Share it with them, it might help them out. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Oh, one more thing I want to mention. You don't have to go buy the Frontier and then change the units, because there are scopes available all over the world with the turrets and the reticles in the same units and for decent prices as well. For example, that scope right over there is an Optizan EVX scope. That's a MIL scope. So for Europeans or Australians or New Zealanders or even British people who want to use MILs, you can get that scope and it's already set up pretty much perfectly. We've got the Aztec Emerald on the FX Impact over there, and the Aztec Emerald is a MOA scope. So for you Americans, that's a good option. It actually comes in cheaper than the Hawks as well. So that's a good one to look at. And then obviously, don't know if you can see that one. That's the SWFA SS, probably the best value for money scope you'll ever find. That one just happens to be a first focal plane scope, so you wouldn't be able to change it anywhere, but that comes standard with MIL turrets. So if you're in the US and you want to use MIL, the Optizan, the SWFA scopes are available as well. And I'll put links to all of this stuff down in the video description. Thanks, guys.